People ask me nearly every day what the real estate market in Tampa is like right now. Is it super competitive? Give me some updates. So let's do a quick market update on Tampa, Florida. I'm Sam, and thanks for coming by the channel. Here at the Living in Tampa channel, we make videos about what it's like to live and move to the Tampa, Florida area. We are realtors, so if you do need help finding a house or selling a house, we would love to connect with you. Give us a call anytime. Also, I do want to point out, as I started to shoot this video, I could see myself in the screen right here, and I look so tired. We have a new baby at home, our second child. He'll be 3 months old in 3 days. Probably about the time this video goes out, he'll be 3 months old. So sleep is still a little bit optional at our house, which makes it hard to be upbeat on camera. I actually had someone that called me recently ask, are you happy down there? I'm like, I am happy, I'm just tired. But let's talk about the market here in Tampa and kind of what it looks like right now to buy. Also, a lot of you have asked me about this other channel called Reventure Consulting, and this guy provides a lot of data-backed insights into the real estate market, and I want to address some of the things that he pointed out about Florida and about Tampa recently. But let's just start with the simple question, is the real estate market in Tampa still competitive? Of course, we all saw it being very competitive last year in 2021, and maybe we're expecting it to calm down. And there are some markets in the US that were really competitive at the beginning of the pandemic and then cooled off. There is just a little bit too much demand in relation to the supply, and the supply has been consistently decreasing since about the middle of 2020. And some of that supply decrease made a lot of sense in the beginning of the pandemic. You know, maybe people were moving out of the area less, people wanted to stay here during that. But now that a lot of people feel safe to move to other areas or to change jobs, people aren't leaving the area as drastically as they have at other times. And it's not just that people aren't leaving the area, people aren't moving around the area as much either. So even if somebody moves across town or moves into a nicer house in the same neighborhood, that would be seen as an increase in supply because their house would come up for sale, and yeah, they're added to the pool of buyers, and so they're increasing the demand as well. But even that kind of traffic isn't happening as much. But let's talk about this specific Reventure Consulting video. He was talking about a real estate bubble, and he was talking specifically about Florida in this video, and I want to address a couple of the things that he pointed out. One of the things he pointed out in using this data that is provided by Redfin is the difference between people within the MSA and outside of the MSA that are searching. So MSA is Metropolitan Statistical Area. So when you look at the Tampa MSA, it's like 4 counties. So if you select that part on the map as he did, it shows how many people are searching for homes using the Redfin app within that area, and then how many people are searching from outside of that area. And there are certain areas in Florida, like Cape Coral, where it's nearly 70% of the traffic is from outside of the MSA. And that could cause a problem because it's still a really big obstacle for someone to move across the country. And I experience that all the time. So in January and February, we had over 100 people call us each of those months. And I don't consider all of those people clients automatically because it is a big obstacle for someone to move across the country and then be ready to buy a house. And I relate with that obstacle because that's something that I did. I know what it takes. I know how scary it can be without a job or even with a new job. If you're bringing your kids, if you're leaving your friends behind, all of those factors are big in this decision. Okay, another thing that this guy from Reventure Consulting pointed out is an increase in building permits. And Tampa is kind of toward the top of the list, maybe top 20 bigger towns in the US where there are a lot of new building permits. I have been asking around to some other lenders and agents and builders about this, and the bulk of this is just the backlog of people who have had places reserved for up to 9-12 months. This is not a lot of sudden new construction. I've had a lot of clients that have been on wait lists or have just been waiting in their line with an active contract, but the building permits aren't pulled until they can actually start on that place. Also, remodels are pulled the same way in Florida, and especially in Hillsborough County. A lot of these custom builders have shifted to doing big remodels in existing homes, partially because of the cost of land and the cost of building materials are so high that a lot of these one-off builders struggle to build a speculative home in this time. Okay, another thing that Reventure Consulting pointed out is the rising cost of home ownership. And I understand what he's saying, but when you look at the Tampa area and the rising cost of home ownership in the area or in Florida in general, that's a very specific data point to make an entire point from, because my cost of home ownership is not rising. I bought a house in 2020. My cost of home ownership is only going up with my taxes or my utilities. The cost of my loan is not going up. I'm not affected by higher interest rates. So the cost of home ownership is only going up for new buyers. And when you look at that as a metric for this bubble is going to burst, that's not actually very definitive. And he does come back in this video to say that in a lot of these markets, the demand is still so high and the supply is so low that even if a bubble is bursting, it will take 6 to 9 months, maybe a year or more. Because say interest rates go up, I don't think any of my clients would be affected by interest rates going up to 5%. I've actually been asking them, does that affect their decision at all? And they say, absolutely not. So if interest rates go up that much, yeah, maybe we have a little bit of a decrease in demand, but we still don't have enough supply. So right now, just to kind of an idea of how competitive places are. Last summer in 2021, a move-in ready house in a good school district was getting 40 to 60 offers within the first weekend. And they were usually having an offer window where offers have to be in by Sunday night and then they decide by Monday or something like that. Those houses get a little bit less offers now. Maybe they get 30 offers instead, and they still go in that one weekend. Also, a couple years ago in Florida, they stopped allowing realtors to list something on the MLS as coming soon, and realtors have created a workaround for that. What they'll do is they'll list a house on Wednesday or Thursday, and they'll say no showings allowed until Saturday. So people see it, they potentially even get offers. I've written offers on houses sight unseen like that before, and then they let people see it on Saturday, and then offers are due on Saturday night. So they create this kind of buzz artificially by not allowing showings within those first couple days that it's listed. Okay, another aspect going on right now in Tampa is rents are continuing to increase, and St. Petersburg, which is an area in here in Tampa, a town of its own, but it's in the Tampa MSA, is often talked about by real estate investors as one of the fastest growing rental markets. There was a study a few years ago that came out that looked at the previous 5 years. I think this study came out in 2020, and it looked at the previous 5 years, and St. Petersburg was the #1 increasing rental market in that time. Rental prices had increased by about 66%, and I wouldn't be surprised if they've increased by that much since then. Of course, as a realtor, it's easy for me to be kind of anti-rental, but I'm really not. I'm also a real estate investor, so I have renters living in houses that I own. Rents are always gonna go up. The houses that I own, rents are always gonna gradually go up. They're gonna match what the market is charging. But my payment on the house is not gonna go up. And this is how real estate investors behave all over the US. Of course, if there is a big crash, then they are going to bring their prices down to barely cover their expenses. Maybe they're even losing a little bit of money every month. They're gonna match whatever the market is doing. So we've had clients that are looking for a rental house and then wanting to buy later, or even some that just are looking for a rental house and don't have a plan for what's next. And we try to help in whatever way we can. I feel very unqualified in finding rental houses because they don't really involve realtors in that process. Whether that's an apartment or a house, they want to talk to you directly. They don't offer much incentive for me to be involved. And I actually feel like I slow it down by just being another cog in the process. So people have actually had more success finding rentals themselves and relying on us just to provide some insight in terms of areas, in terms of good fit for them as people and families. But it might take weeks for you to find a rental, and if you can afford to buy, it's going to take just as long for you to find a place to buy. Okay, let's talk quickly about some averages right now. The average price in the Tampa MSA is around $420,000, maybe a little bit less. When I moved here in early 2020, the average price was like $285,000. It has gone up so much since then, and in the past year, it has gone up about $100,000. And as I've mentioned in the video linked above, my house is a pretty good example of that. We bought it in September 2020 for $292,000. Right now, I think I could sell it for about $415,000. And it's just a 3-bedroom house. So let's talk about what our average buyer is like and what they're having to do to get something under contract. We don't really have an average buyer right now. We really serve the whole age range and everything in between, and that is a lot of fun. We get people in all kinds of circumstances, but there are a lot of people that do care about school districts, and we do recommend a few different ones, but we recommend you do your own research on those as well, because a good school is very different to everyone. My wife was actually telling me the other day, my wife grew up in the area. She went to the fundamental school system for elementary and middle school. She lives in Tarpon Springs, and the fundamental middle school was in Clearwater. So it was like a 30-minute drive on the bus, but she had to ride the city bus because the fundamental schools didn't have their own buses. Here she was, ages 11 to 12, all the way up to 14, 15, riding the city bus for 30 minutes a day each way, so an hour a day on the city bus. She said the kids were just like running all around that bus, like falling over, like you can imagine. Middle schoolers are crazy. So we do have a lot of people that care about school districts, and that is a big factor in competitiveness. So that is one factor that makes a house very competitive, is if it's in a very good school district. Other things that make a house very competitive: if it is move-in ready, like you don't have to do anything, and if it has a swimming pool, and specifically like with the cage over it. Sometimes we jokingly call those bird cages, but they are really nice to be in. They keep the bugs out, they diffuse the sun quite a bit. They make it a lot more enjoyable in the summer to swim in your pool. But even if all those stars are not aligned, maybe we're compromising on something. Maybe we're compromising on a little bit of condition or no pool. We're still typically having to offer asking price or above, and we're having to do something else to make our offer juicy. What I mean by that is, maybe we're shortening the inspection. Maybe we're offering to cover an appraisal gap. If the appraisal comes in a little bit low, we're saying we'll cover this much. That range kind of depends on what price range the house is in and how much we're over asking price on the offer. So then in the midst of the contract period, we still do an inspection, and we still actually negotiate quite a bit for inspection. So a house we have under contract in St. Petersburg, it's actually on Snell Island, which is a really cool area in St. Petersburg. We offered pretty far over asking price. We waived the financing contingency, so the appraisal doesn't even matter. So it's pretty much like a cash transaction at that point. But after the inspection, we asked for $10,000 in concessions, and they gave it pretty easily. So we're not scared to still ask for those things, but sometimes sellers are like, what? How dare you? And we still try, and sometimes the other side gets upset with us, but we want to represent our buyers the best we can. And sometimes the deal doesn't make sense unless there is some kind of wiggle at that point. And even if there's not, sometimes we still go through with it. But probably the biggest obstacle in finding a house right now is just that there's so few out there. It's on kind of a weekend cycle where houses are coming up at the end of the week and they're going under contract before the end of the weekend. This is really stressful. If you're here to see houses like on a Monday, there was like not much to see. Also, you just don't know how long it's gonna take when there's not much for you to choose from. When you've looked at everything that fits your criteria and not one of them works, or maybe you wrote offers on 5 of them and didn't get any of them, and you feel like you have to just wait until the next weekend to see what comes out and do that over and over again, that can be really stressful. But we do get something under contract eventually. So I wanted you guys to have a good understanding of what the market is like right now, middle of March in 2022. If you do need help finding a place, or you have any questions about the area, or you want to move here in a year and you want to start the process, don't hesitate to give us a call. Our phone number and email are right there on the screen and in the description down below. Thanks for coming by.